Welcome back to the Homeschool Mom Chat every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific. I'm so glad you're here. Today I'm going to have a chat with Stacie, who's from Freedom Flow Coffee. I mean, perfect combination of words. I'm going to learn a little bit about her working homeschool mom experience, and I've titled this conversation Flow Meets Structure because they both are required in the homeschool mom life. And I know that me working with other homeschool moms who are building coaching businesses, they need to find space to incorporate both time to obviously build their business, obviously to spend time with the kids, and also to have some quiet space away from all of that. So I'm looking forward to having a conversation with her about simplifying mindsets around this or daily routines around this so life fits, and instead of us trying to fit life into all the things. So if you have ever felt pulled in too many directions, and if you're a working homeschool mom life, you might be between the lesson plans or just between picking up a book and reading it from the read aloud stack or doing housework. I mean, do we just give up on the housework? Or building your business, maybe just trying to breathe? Then this is definitely the right place for you today. So I welcome Stacie to the Homeschool Mom Chat. So all you need to do is just press yes.
Hi.
Hey, nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Can you hear me?
Sure can.
Awesome.
So where are you coming from? You're, I'm assuming you're in the States. I made an assumption.
Yes, I am near Houston, Texas.
Oh, in Texas. Okay. I'm in British Columbia, Canada. So like exactly opposite.
Right, exactly. Yes, that's a long way.
Yeah, it sure is. Well, I'm glad we have this then because I love watching your reels. They seem so relatable. And when I first started doing my working homeschool mom life, I had two cafes that I would always go to, and that could easily have been my reels at the time, but reels didn't exist at the time. So I'd love to hear about you.
Thank you. Again, I'm Stacie, and I started homeschooling about 6 years ago.
Yeah.
It started off the first year.
Oh, I think we lost Stacie. Hey, again. Welcome back.
Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah.
Okay, like I said, I started homeschooling about 6 years ago. It was the decision um, that we made, and we said we would do it for 1 year,
Yeah.
year by year. And what happened was I was a short hair stylist,
Mhm.
and I was working in the salon. And when COVID hit, I decided to shut down the business um, because with everything that was going on, I couldn't work.
Yeah.
And so during that time, we just said, we'll shut down the business. I'm going to focus on homeschooling my kids full time.
Yeah.
And at the time, my son was, kindergarten. My daughter was going into the second grade. And I took the same energy, fast paced, go, go, go into the homeschool life
Yep.
and quickly burned out.
Yep. Yep.
And
Exactly. Me too.
I couldn't figure out what was wrong. And
Mhm.
so I decided to see a doctor,
Mm.
a functional medicine doctor. And she said, if you don't change your lifestyle, you will be bedridden.
Mm.
And I told her, you're lying. She had all the panels, but I just couldn't believe that I was able to do so much
Mhm.
and be at that point. And I asked her, well, then how am I able to function?
Yeah.
And she said, sheer will.
Mm.
But if you don't make the changes yourself, your body will shut down. And it's almost to that point. and I was shocked. I could not, but I knew I felt exhausted,
Mm.
but I didn't know it had gotten to that point. And so that was the point where I decided to start making some real changes in our homeschool, in my mindset, and in our home, and just simplifying everything.
Beautiful. I mean, beautiful, the story, but I can really relate because that's why I started here in the first place.
Yeah.
It was 2018 when I wrote my book about nurturing the nurturer. I mean, that was after 15 or so years of homeschooling and mothering, maybe 20 years of mothering at that point. But I know that same experience of burning out, going whole hog into this, we're going to do this homeschool thing, we're going to out private school to private school. And by year 3, that was when I started burning out. And now, mostly when I'm talking with homeschool moms and coaching, it's year 3 or 4. Not always, but often. Depends
Yeah.
on how. Yeah. So,
And I do oh, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
I do believe that it wasn't just the homeschooling,
Hmm.
um, because clearly, I think I had been pushing myself.
Yeah.
But what homeschooling did, because I was at home and I wasn't going anywhere, and that was my only focus, and I was cooking 3 meals a day and homeschooling and trying to keep the house spotless. And at that time, my kids were still young, so I still had to do a lot of things on my own. And I have a very helpful husband who never minded helping me, but I felt
Yeah.
my own thinking was that I needed to do everything on
Yeah.
my own. And so I think it was just kind of like, how do you say it was the tipping point. The homeschooling was the tipping point,
Yes.
if you get it. Yeah.
Yes. Common
Yeah.
experience, I think, is that we take on a lot of responsibilities, and we do that long enough, we become really resentful of the people that we love. And meanwhile, they didn't actually ask us to do it. We just decided it was the best thing and we would do it all at the expense of ourselves. So I thought I heard you say something that suggested to me that maybe you knew there was more than the homeschool and housewife experience, that you wanted to do something outside of that. And I'm curious what that was and how that fuels you.
So, like I said, I was a short hair stylist for a couple of years. I had got my license in high school and went back to the salon. So when COVID hit and I decided, my husband and I said we're going to shut it down. I said I was done with business
Hmm.
because the whole experience of um, your business being cut off all of a sudden when you have a brick and mortar, I said, I'm not ever going to do that because it was scary. It was shocking. And so one day, my husband, who's still in corporate America, said, "Hey, I want us to do a business together, like a family business." And I said, "Okay, but it has to be online." And he said, "Okay." And so that's when I said, okay, I will do a business again, but I'm going to do an online business. And I started learning and following different people and seeing what to do. And the and what's crazy is that I had always said I was going to do an online business because my ultimate goal with the hair salon was to teach short haircuts online.
Really?
That was going to be my ultimate goal. But I think I was so shocked by everything that happened with COVID. I just was like, I don't want to, that is too much. And
Yeah.
so I said, you know what? I remember this lady I saw doing hair and she was teaching online. And so I said, I want to do an online business. And I started following people. But again, I took on too much.
Right. Yeah.
So I went from doing too much to slowing all the way down and getting very bored. And then I had this, my husband said, let's do a business. So I was invigorated again. And then I took on too much because
Yes.
because now I'm trying to start a business. And you know how it is when you're learning. And again, I saw myself heading back towards burnout.
Yes. So it's a
So
thing, how homeschooling tipped you over the edge, and then the business angle or working homeschool mom life tipped you over the edge. And so, what are some of the lessons that you've learned?
I had I had to get in my mind that I had to let go of the timetable I had in my mind.
Yes, amen, sister. That was me too. It really was. Time blocking, time auditing, that's what kept me sane. I realized that I have some weirdly unrealistic expectations. Like I'm outside of time and I can accomplish more than time exists.
That was it. I had to let go of the timetable of me learning a whole new skill set, still being able to homeschool my kids, but also I had to stop putting myself last.
Right.
I came to a realization that the only way for me to accomplish these things that I wanted to do it. I love the homeschooling because it's freedom. It's freedom to do what you want, when you want, how you want.
That was my word when I went into it too. Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, I'm not free.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm imprisoned in my own home and my own schedule that I created. And I had to simplify even more
Mm-hmm.
my my home, my wardrobe, the kids' clothes, how I shopped, how I prepared meals, our routines. I simplified our homeschool to the point where I only focus on core subjects like reading, writing, and math, and then we outsource everything else, meaning we go to activities or someone else teaches it
Yep.
or we learn it in a different way. So once I stopped putting myself last, too, is what I said, and I gained energy. You know, I felt like I could even do more. Then I slowed it all the way down.
Mm-hmm.
I adjusted my expectations of how much I could accomplish in a day or a week in my business. And once I decided to stay consistent in doing small habits daily and weekly, it wasn't hard anymore.
Look at your week essentially as a block, like different blocks within. At least that's how I approach it. And I'm not homeschooling anymore, and I still do it. I still time block because I know that I cannot do everything all the time. But man, if you, excuse me, if you just block in a certain amount of time for certain things every week, who was it that said you don't feel like you can do very much in 6 months, but you can do a remarkable amount in a couple of years, so 3, 4 years. And I to be true to myself, and also for the women that I'm working with. And I have a business builders group for women that are building coaching businesses. And I in the working as I was working, I was essentially doing it in the same room with my kids. I don't know if you do that. How do you actually create time to do the work? Do you leave the home, go to the cafe? I did that too, by the way. Or do you stay with them?
So it depends on the season. So sometimes I do go to a cafe and I'll go with them.
Yeah.
But most of the time, especially during the summers, when they're in their activities, I will work.
Yeah.
Or they know that we have a routine more than a set time, so they know it's I do my time in the morning, then we do homeschool, and then I do business. So usually during that time is when they have their tablet time. That's when they're doing their drawing, they're creating, reading. That's when they're pretty much doing their or just having a quiet time, or maybe they're playing outside in the backyard. Sometimes we'll go to the pool and I'll work. But they know that that's my time. But they
Yep.
know after that time, it's their time.
So how did you
So
establish your boundaries with your kids?
I made a deal with myself, first of all, that I need to be a person of my word.
Mm,
If
I love
if
that.
I if
Yeah.
I told them, hey, after whatever, because what we do, we talk about the day in the morning. So when we have breakfast, after breakfast, we talk about this is what to expect today, because there are days when my schedule has to change. It's not always I work at 2 o'clock, you know.
Mhm.
So I let them know, hey, this is the expectation of the day. This is what we're doing. This is when I need to work.
Yeah.
And I have to keep my word. If I tell them, hey, I'm done by this time and we're going to go do this, or this is y'all's time now, I have to stick to that.
Yeah, you know what I've said, that if you want to establish a boundary with your kids, the first person that needs to believe that boundary is you. You have to believe that you are going to make this happen. And it's not always the kids. And then expecting the kids to honor certain things when they are just young is not realistic, but practice over and over, eventually they get the drill. Just the same as they know when snack time is. They also know, mom, if for me, anyways, if I was on my laptop, then it would be, mom is writing, so please don't interrupt. And it just was what it was because I believed it.
Yeah. And when they were younger, some years ago, I still would make time to, even though I was in the research phase and I was still figuring out what platforms I wanted to be on, but I still considered that my work time.
Yeah.
That it was still the same thing, even when they were younger. I couldn't work as long as I can now,
Yeah.
but I would get up and do a little bit in the morning and then I would do some in the afternoon. But I also had to stop. I don't want to say I compare myself a lot. I don't think that's a big issue, but I think when you're on these social media platforms and you hear a lot of what others are doing, you can start to feel maybe guilty about, oh, well, maybe I need to plan, these different activities for them while I'm on, while I'm trying to do the business. But what works for us is their planned TV and tablet time.
Oh, so many. My jury is out on screen time. I actually lived in the era of fax machines and phones cords attached to the walls and things like that. And I can remember my mom saying, like, you have to get off the phone. But I mean, there was a reason you couldn't call emergency if you needed to. If
Yeah.
there was one phone in the house and it was attached to a wall. But we were always attracted to technology, and that still is the case today. But my point is that it's valuable to restrict screen time for the mom, because sometimes you really just need them to be quiet. And that right there is a great reason to restrict screen time at times. So they get their tablets and they know they get it, and then you actually get to work, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it works for us. And so I try not to listen to, we have our times when we're not on the tab. That's not something that we do all the time, but
Yeah.
I don't allow what others are doing to affect what works best for us
Mm-hmm.
and how we regulate it. I don't even talk about it in my content because it's such a personal thing. And
Yes.
even with homeschool, I I talk generally about homeschool because it's so personalized and everybody's families are different. But I do know that you have to have a measure of structure. You
Yes.
have, I have ADHD,
Mm.
and I know that for me, I crave the structure, but I need flexibility.
Yes. Said every 80 mom. Yeah. Yeah. All the time. I probably engage half the women that I'm working with are ADHD. And fairly recent diagnosis. So I find that intriguing. But this conversation about structure and flow, I have found myself, because a lot of people will say, well, if you're in flow, then structure is really not a useful tool. But actually, I find creating structure, blocking off time to do certain things, means that you can be present to the thing and then it flows. And of course, there is an end to that time, especially if you have kids at home and you're full time homeschooling. But it does come to an end. But if you're able to create a structure, then you have potential for flow.
Absolutely. I have tried the strict 15-minute, every hour I have this particular thing that I'm doing. I've been very strict in my schedule. And it got to the point where I didn't want to even look at a planner because I would get so much anxiety about not meeting the expectations of the planner. If that makes any sense.
Even though
I
it
would
was
just,
put it together.
even though, yes, I
Yeah.
put it together, but just the thought of
Yeah.
I don't even like planners that have hours on it anymore
Okay.
because it gives me anxiety. If I don't start at 1 o'clock, I don't know why, it just gives me a lot of anxiety. So, and I've also tried winging it, as they say, we're just going to go with the flow. That does not work for me because I need order. My home is very organized. Um, I am an organized person, but I'm also chaotic. It's crazy. I think it's the ADHD. The point is,
Fun.
I have a measure of structure. I
Yeah.
have a calendar. Everyone knows me. If they say, "Hey, Stacie, can you do such and such?" I'm going to pull out that calendar. They know everything is on it, but I'm not ruled by it. It just allows me to see, because I have my phone all the time,
Mhm.
what we're doing when.
Yes. Actually,
And
ladies that are listening right now, I'd love to hear what their relationship is between structure or working homeschool mom life and flow. And, just to be clear, I actually have a flow workshop coming up, but I use the acronym differently than in this conversation. So I'm curious if you have an acronym related to flow, because mine is more about clarifying who we are. And so what I say is F is for find your voice. L is for listen within. O is own your story. And U is to walk in wholeness. So that has more to do with our sense of personhood. But I'm curious what your perspective is on flow in this context.
flow for me is not feeling anxious,
Mm,
but there's an ease. There is, what to expect next without being tied to the minute or the hour.
right.
That's what flow means to me. We have a routine more than a set timetable for everything. So it doesn't matter if we wake up late. It doesn't matter if school starts at 10 or 11. We know that we wake up, we have breakfast, we talk about our day, we do our chores, we homeschool, then we do the business, then it's family time. It doesn't matter what time it really starts. That's just pretty much the flow of the day.
Yeah, those are like your daily anchors then.
Yes.
Yes.
So that's what that means to me. And when I try to make it by the 15-minute or the hour increment, I rebelled against it. My
You
own
did.
self. I rebelled against my own self. So
Yeah. I probably I think two of the four that would have resisted that at all costs of my kids, and one that would have gone with the flow, and the other one was too young for me to know. But I know for myself, I felt exhausted. By my third or fourth year, this was before I was officially building a business. I was writing, but I was trying to fit writing in. But by my third or fourth year, I was reading 3 read alouds in the day, and I scheduled it in. And I was trying to incorporate both the classical homeschool approach with a well-trained mind with Charlotte Mason, and a very specific one where it was like every 15 to 20 minutes they would shift subject. And so it wasn't just the kids that burned, it wasn't just me that burned out, it was the kids too, I think. But then try to incorporate a business into that, inconceivable.
yeah, it the, and the another thing that when you're saying with
Yeah.
the kids need the structure. They
Yeah.
needed to
Oh,
know
yeah.
what we're doing next. They need to know the flow of the day. They need to know, okay, what subjects are we covering today? What activities are we going to be in? So the whole just winging it every day and not really knowing was, especially for one of my kids, was really frustrating when I was doing that. And
Mhm.
so I knew I had to create a structure in our home where they knew what we were doing, but at the same time, we all would get bored, when we didn't have enough flexibility. When I made it too strict, it got very boring, and they were rebelling against the homeschooling.
Mm.
And so I had to give us enough flexibility to leave the house,
Yeah.
to go on field trips, to fit in different activities. And once I lessened how many subjects we were covering,
Mhm.
that freed up a lot of time. When I decided, okay, we'll have a flow to our day instead of timetables,
Mhm.
that gave us room for if we needed more time for homeschool or
Mhm.
not, you know.
Right.
So yeah.
So, one element that we haven't spoken to yet is, okay, so there's this cultural conversation for a long time about women that either, if you're a woman that's working, you should feel bad because you're not with the kids. But if you're with the kids, you should feel bad because you don't have a role inside the culture outside of motherhood. And so how do you navigate that? Because you're kind of doing both. And I know that a lot of moms feel a sense of guilt no matter what they do. You can come, you can go, you can do this, you can do that. It doesn't matter. Guilt is a thing for moms. How do you manage that?
um well, number one, my experience growing up, my mom did both. So my
Yeah.
mom stayed home with us until I was in elementary.
Mhm.
And so I saw the both aspects. Um, so I just know that you have to do what's best for your family. I'm not a person who says you have to homeschool. I don't think homeschool is for everyone for a variety of reasons. I don't think working at home is for everyone for a variety of reasons. I think you have to know yourself, your values, your beliefs, and what is it that you are trying to accomplish when it's all said and done.
Right.
And I remember there's a quote by Stephen Covey, begin with the end in mind.
Ah,
And if you begin looking out into the future when they're 18 years old, what is it that you want? What experience would you have wanted them to have? What is it that you want to have accomplished? And that should guide why you're doing what you're doing. And so when I think about our beliefs and our values and what we want our kids to have, for us, me doing both fits that picture.
right. So you've got the end in mind, you know what your long-term goal is. And so then moving towards that, that's really beautifully said. You sound like you've got a really clear vision for yourself and for your kids. And you're in your 6th year of homeschool already? Yeah.
Yeah, the vision is clear. Sometimes the steps are not always clear. I
Yes.
have to keep reevaluating and and going back to our why as a family is something that I have to keep revisiting. There's many days when I'm like, I'm sending them to school. So
I'd have
I'm
passed
sending them to school.
that. Yep.
Yeah. Or you know what? I don't want to do the business anymore. I don't even want to think.
Yeah.
But usually when I feel that way, it's because I'm doing too much.
Ah,
My expectations are unrealistic.
yeah.
And I think that it's usually the timetable that I'm expecting things to be done in is usually the problem. The
Mhm.
workload is too much, or I'm not asking for enough help, or I'm not um, delegating enough. And so I'm feeling way down. And usually when I address those issues, the joy comes back in why we decided to do what we're doing. And I just want to add that homeschool and business is always second to the family and and our values and beliefs. And I have to constantly check myself to make sure that it's in its proper place, because one of my greatest fears is that I did all of this and my children don't want to be with us in the end.
Right.
Our relationship has been damaged
Mhm.
because of homeschooling or business.
What you're saying actually brings up a thought for me too, that a lot of moms hear us, dare I say older, but like our veteran homeschool moms, I can't believe I said that out loud.
Yeah, yeah.
But that really, when we say, hey, connection really is your ultimate goal, that is not cliche. That is true. And
Mhm.
especially when we have this drive or ambition to do something, which absolutely fuels us as we're doing this homeschool mom life. And it's so fun and it's so creative, and we're offering the world something. So then it has so much benefit. But at the same time, if there is a feeling like, well, I'm seriously missing what's going on with a child, and it's like, okay, stop the bus, because it really does matter more than everything. And yet, I mean, sometimes you also have to acknowledge that you are a human too, and you have needs as well, and you need to honor and acknowledge them. And I frankly think it's harder for us to do that than it is to look at our child and say, what do you need? Because that's a mother's default setting. How can I do everything for you? And completely ignore the fact that I'm also a human.
Yes, that is very true. And I think for a long time I did not think I needed as much as I did,
Yeah,
as
me
I
too.
do, as I
Mhm.
do. And I also did a lot of personality tests, and when I realized that I'm an introvert,
Yeah,
because I love talking to people, I love being around people, but energy wise, I one day I told my kids, I said, look, I'm like a cell phone. When mommy doesn't get when mommy doesn't get charged,
yeah,
the battery dies.
exactly.
I die because I have no energy. So I've got to go recharge my battery like a phone so that I have something to give to you. So my phone is working.
Yeah,
And because at first when I used to tell them I need to be alone, they thought I didn't want to be with them.
right. Yeah,
And when I gave them the illustration of the cell phone, I'm like, a cell phone, if I'm not plugged in by having alone time, my battery dies and then you can't use the phone anymore. And that's what happens to me. So they understand now my need to have time by myself, or my need to say, okay, when 9 o'clock comes, I'm not answering any more of your questions. So
time, Stacie. There's that, like that time, and a quiet afternoon time. A lot of moms have the quiet afternoons,
yeah.
and they're like, nope, I'm not available. And yeah, there's a fine line in communicating one message and the other. But at the same time, when you do that, you're charged. You're charged. And if you don't have the charge, you don't have the charge.
And they just laugh now. They laugh at me because I'll say, I'm not available, like you said. And they'll laugh like, okay, mom. And they know that. And
Yeah.
with the communication, I ask them a lot, do you ever feel like, you know, I don't want to be with you, or I don't have time for you? And usually they'll say, please, mom, we're together all day.
How old your kids are? I'm assuming that they're moving into teenagehood, or they
uh,
still.
10 and 13.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. That'll, yeah, that's so. I've got so many questions. I love to continue to ask, but I have another conversation at 2 that I need to go to. But I want to maybe just emphasize, I know there's so many discussion points when you're working homeschool mom, like the conversation about balance or guilt or, those challenges. But also remember that, just like Stacie said, when you do something that you really love and you're energizing yourself, when you're not on red, then you really are giving to your kids so much more. I would say, as a mom, a homeschool mom turned certified life coach who actually works with one of my grown-up kids. She's 22 now and she works with me. And I remember when I first started developing this business, she said to me, Mom, it's really cool watching you do this kind of thing and really creating your own thing, creating something from nothing. And that's what we also leave with them, is that look, that experience of, did you see what mom, or dad, of course, but we're talking moms here, that, do you see what mom created? Do you see what mom did? And I think that's a powerful message for our girls, all our kids, but definitely our girls.
Yeah, definitely. I do feel guilt at
Yeah,
times. I think that's
okay.
just normal. You always wonder, are you doing enough?
Always,
But I think
always.
when you learn to prioritize, there are certain things that I have really worked hard on and I continue to work hard on that are non-negotiables as far as the time that I have with my children, the time I have for myself, and the time I have with, with my husband. They're not always long periods of time, but they're non-negotiables on a daily, weekly, monthly basis.
Yeah.
And I'll just give you one example. We really try to, in the evenings, go take a walk,
Mm.
and we don't have our phones. We just walk and talk,
Mm.
and we try to have dinner together almost every night. That those little things really bring us together, and
Mm.
the kids really feel connected to us, and we feel connected to them. So if you can just take those small pockets of time, daily, weekly, monthly, they build the connection. And so
Mm.
when I'm not doing those things that I start to feel guilty.
Right.
But
So you
but
know what?
when
Sarah Mackenzie from Read Aloud Revival podcast. But one time we had a conversation publicly and on my podcast, and she said, I'm not concerned about balance. I'm concerned about being present wherever I am. And I'm like, that's exactly it. Learning to be present with your time, wherever you are, with the people that you're doing things with, or even just your laptop. Be
yes, yeah, that's exactly it. So when we say we're having family time, when we say we're walking together, then we're there. I'm there. My husband is there. We're there. And when we do that, I don't feel guilty about the other time
right.
because like I said, I really work hard and I'm still doing it. I'm not perfect at it. But being a person of my word, if I say I'm going to be with you all, I'm with you.
Mm,
When I say I'm working, then I'm working or
right.
whatever else, we need to do.
I love that. I love that. I'm not surprised at all that we have very similar language because I truly can almost feel the energy of connecting, or like I get somebody on the other end. By chance, do you drink cappuccinos? Or
Of course.
well, that was a total shot in the dark.
Of course I do.
Well, now I know. Now we can friend. Yeah.
Yes, I'm not, I don't know everything about coffee, but it is my joy. So let me just tell you real quick.
Yeah.
When I was going to the functional medicine doctor and she said, you're going to have to get rid of coffee. I was like, hold up. Now, wait a minute. let's, let's not take it that far.
Yeah.
And so she said,
Oh,
if
I'm
you
dying.
can,
We're all
yeah,
dying.
yes, because it really is my morning comfort that I look forward to. So I found a brand
Yeah.
that doesn't give me anxiety, and she approved.
Yeah. That's great. Because I will give up all sorts of things, but it will not be coffee.
Not coffee. Please don't tell me that.
Absolutely. Oh, it's such a pleasure chatting with you. I know for myself, I offer a one session homeschool mom reset session for moms if they want to realign what they're doing in their homeschool mom life, and that's free. And if anybody is interested in joining me for that, just let me know. But what do you offer before I wrap?
So right now, I offer, if you go to my at Freedom Flow and Coffee um, Instagram page and you sign up for my email list, because if you were on this call, I have something called the Simple Flow Method, which
Mhm.
teaches you how to simplify your schedule, how to reset when you have low energy days, when you have regular days, when you're on the run. And I will give that to your audience for free. They just need to sign up for my email list,
Yes.
not the actual. They don't have to go to the part that is the paid part. But for your audience, I will give that to them for free.
Beautiful. Maybe just put it in the comments section so everybody can grab that. And this is recorded on Instagram Live, 1 p.m. Pacific, every Tuesday for the Homeschool Mom Chat. But I will have it on YouTube by the end of next in the Homeschool Mom Chat playlist on my YouTube channel. It was such a pleasure chatting with you. And I don't have a chance to have a cappuccino right now, but if I did choose a coffee, that would be it.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah,
I really appreciate that so much.
it was such a pleasure. Lovely to meet you. We'll see you soon, and goodbye, everybody. Mwah! See you soon.